What is going on, you guys? Welcome into the OUA Basketball Show. My name is Griffin Porter. Thank you so much for joining me on this Friday. And boy, oh boy, what a weekend. What a weekend coming up. What a weekend we had. Let's get right into the games. And to talk about this many games in this much depth, you need energy. You need to be refueled. And that's why I turned to BioSteel. And you guys might know that BioSteel is redefining sports hydration. And as the official hydration partner of the OUA, they're supporting the next generation of Canadian athletes. Their zero sugar, high quality products help athletes perform at their best. Check out biosteel.ca/OUA for more info. You know, they're redefining sports hydration. What's more athletic than hosting an OUA basketball show? I can't think of anything. My name is Griffin Porter. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Let's get straight into all of our quarterfinal action. We'll start on the men's side, and there's no other place to start than the Ontario Tech Ridgebacks. The 10th seed walked into Lakehead's house and locked the 2 seed down, taking home the 80-73 win. Zubair Syed with 22 points. Ayub Nur Hussein with 25 off the bench to lead the way for Ontario Tech. They hold Lakehead to just 35% shooting from the floor and 22% from three. It's a disappointing finish for the Thunderwolves, but what an exciting story coming out of Ontario Tech. Next up, the other upset is TMU went out west to London and exploded for 101 points behind a combined 65 points from the trio of Maxime Louis-Jean, Javier Gilgeous-Glasgow, and Aaron Rooms. The Bold were absolutely humming on offense, 33 assists on their 40 made field goals. What an incredible display of teamwork and ball movement. It was just basketball at its most beautiful from TMU this weekend. That earns them the spot in the semifinals. The Ottawa GGs never even allowed 15 points in a quarter as they held Laurentian to just 50 overall in their 81-50 win in the quarterfinals. And Keith Chowdhury leads the way for the GGs with 19 points as they score 26 points off turnovers. That's how they do it. That's how they win their games compared to just 4 POTs. That's points off turnovers for those of you who don't know POTs for Laurentian. That's a winning recipe for Ottawa. Friend of the show, Dragan Stajic, contributing heavily to those numbers with 7 steals. Ridiculous defensive display from the Dragon. And finally, we had one come down to the wire in Kingston as the Queens Gales knocked off the Carleton Ravens 86-83. Lucas Silas gets all the headlines from this one with his 27.7 rebound performance. Another great performance, playoff performance from one of the best in the OUA. Playoff lights not too bright for first-year Ollie Engen. He puts up 20 points in his OUA playoff debut, including icing the game with a couple of free throws with 9 seconds left to put the Gales up by 3. Ravens were able to get the ball into the hands of Xavier Spencer for the game-tying 3. He was the hot hand that game, had 20 points, wasn't able to get it to go, unfortunately, and Queens goes on to the semis. Over on the women's side, it's a better weekend for Carleton there as they take down McMaster 98-45. 21 of McMaster's 45 points came in a really strong third quarter, which, if you can do math like me, means that you know that Carleton held them to 24 points in the other 30 minutes of that game. Crazy defensive effort. We talked about the fact that Mac had a great offense, but would need to find a way to solve Carleton's defense, and unfortunately, they just couldn't crack the code. Sophie Urosevich goes 5 of 10 from 3 to have the best performance of the night for the Marauders, but that's not enough to overcome Carleton's total team effort. 22 points and 10 rebounds from Kiana Jade Poulin, 19 points from Jacqueline Urban, and 25 from Teresa Donato all lead the way for Carleton as they stay undefeated heading into the semis. Ottawa also moves on, beating Queens 71-52. This game really got away from the Gales in the second quarter as Ottawa won that quarter 25-7. Ali McCarthy leads the way for the GGs with 20 points, 13 points, 8 assists, 4 steals, and 4 rebounds from the do-it-all guard Natsuki Sosokin. The GGs forced the Gales into a cold shooting night, and were able to take advantage. Next game, the Windsor Lancers, they keep on dancing as they beat Guelph 73-67. A really exciting game out in Windsor for this one. A huge comeback for the Lancers as they trailed by 11 at the half and led by 4 going into the fourth quarter. So a big turnaround in the third quarter. Julia Sherratt and Callie Grutenborg both putting up 8 points in that third quarter to spark the comeback as Guelph puts 4 players in double figures, but that still isn't enough to overcome the group effort by Windsor, led by 22 points on 11 shots from Grutenborg. The Lancers were not talked about enough this season. I'm guilty of it. I think a lot of the OUA commentators are guilty of it, but now they're making some noise and making us pay, marching on to the semis. And finally, Brock versus TMU. The Badgers started out hot and then went incredibly cold. Brock was up by 12 midway through the second quarter. The game looked like it was going to come right down to the wire. It was a single-digit game heading into the fourth, but then the Badgers go scoreless for the first 9 minutes of the fourth quarter. They only score 4 total points, and it's an incredible raising of the level from TMU. And here to talk about it is one of the stars of that TMU Bold team, Kaillie Hall. And my guest today, one of the stars of the TMU Bold team that's marching on to the OUA semifinals, Kaillie Hall. Kaillie, thank you so much for coming back on the OUA Basketball Show.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
I think it's been a couple years since we got to have you here, so it's great to see you again. And why don't we jump right into it with the big win you guys just had last weekend against the Brock Badgers. I was lucky enough to be in the building for the game. It was a great game. You guys played amazing. And I want to start with that fourth quarter, ironically. Who doesn't love starting with the fourth quarter? It was a tight game for those who didn't get to watch it all the way down to the end. When you guys really just locked in on defense, you only allowed 4 points in that fourth quarter. You didn't allow any points in the first 8:55 of the fourth quarter. I know you know all this, but I'm just telling the fans. Can you tell me about what happened in that fourth quarter? We know you guys are a team that hangs your hat on defense. What switch flipped for you that really allowed you to lock in there?
Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of hit right on it in terms of just like defense being a huge part of our identity as a team. And that's something, that we've gone back to throughout the year when the going gets tough or, a shot doesn't fall, like, can we turn around and get a stop? And really in that fourth quarter, like that was just putting what we've practiced the whole year into a really big moment. And just having the resilience to, play 3 quarters of basketball and really want to tough it out in the fourth. I think also like in combination with that, like a lot of patience offensively too, that helped us have some more control in terms of just like the flow of the game. Like Kate Nichols getting huge rebounds and controlling the pace, and like Haley Franco Drake just doing like everything on both ends. And when you have such great pieces like that, it makes it really great to lock in defensively, but also then have the trust on offense of being able to execute in a big moment. And honestly, I think that fourth quarter was just like a really good blend of our identity in terms of defense and also just recognizing what we wanted to get on offense, and putting it into a really big moment and ultimately wanting to win too. I think that like is a huge part of it. Obviously, playoff games are do or die, and just really wanting it for each other and wanting it for our group was also just a huge part of that as well.
Yeah, well, if you can allow 4 points per quarter going forward, I think you'll be sitting pretty. You guys have had such a great rivalry with Brock over the years. You've played some amazing playoff games the last few seasons. Like, what do you think of when you think of the Brock Badgers and that team?
Yeah, I think like a big rivalry for sure. Obviously, 2 really talented women's basketball programs. And it's great just to create some noise between that matchup around, U Sports women's basketball. And I think you saw that probably in the build up to the game. Historically, even before I got here, some really big games that have gone down at the MAC and then also in St. Catharines. So honestly, just like really like proud to be a part of the OUA and have that opportunity to have that rivalry and have that something be a part of my time in university, because ultimately those are the games you remember, and those are the ones that obviously have a little bit more weight to them at times, but in the end are like really gritty, resilient wins. But it's just like a testament to our league and how talented it is. And, Brock obviously being a really great team along with so many other opponents in the OUA. You have to show up every night. And I think that's a huge part of being prepared, and like how we show up in playoffs is just having a season where you're tested every single night. So.
Right. You guys obviously have that championship DNA within you. You've got a bunch of players and coaching staff still in the squad that know what it takes to win a championship. You talked about that win being gritty and resilient. Do you think that helps you in situations like that? Like, you guys went down 12 in the first half of that win against Brock. Do you think having been there before, like, even just subconsciously, like, can you draw on that experience?
Yeah, for sure. I think, any moment you're tested, whether it was, in November at the start of the year or now is helpful, especially in a big game like that when there is obviously the added pressure of wanting to keep advancing. Um, but I think in terms of just like gritty, resilient, that's like also an identity piece of our team as well, and just like really wanting to tough it out and doing the little things, and I think that was also a huge part of it as well. Obviously, like being tested like that is helpful moving forward, but also just knowing that like it's a part of how we prepare, how we've shown up since September, how we've trained since August, like that gritty resilience, wanting to do it for each other is just a part of our preparation and how we play on the court. So
Okay, so pivoting on to your personal season a little bit here, because we got to ask you about that. You, for the first time since you came to the OUA, led your team in scoring this year. Congratulations on your amazing season. I was going through the box scores. I was perusing, doing my research, and I noticed that a lot of that came from an increase in free throw attempts this year. You did a great job of getting to the line more than you ever have before. How did that come about? Was that a change in mentality? Are you feeling less pain this year? Are you willing to bang bodies more? Like how did that big increase come about for you? Was that deliberate?
I don't think so. I think honestly, this group specifically has a really good blend of older veteran players with a group of younger players as well. And I think having last year to play together and get to know each other, and then coming into this year and having a sense of, where Kat's going to be when she's spotting up for three, just knowing each other a little bit better, I think allowed for more of those opportunities for everyone. And then just specifically with getting to the line, it's pretty, it's when you have Jamie Foreman and Kat and Alex Pino, like on the corners, bigs who can shoot, who can get to the rim, like it opens up a lot. And I think that was probably just a testament to, getting to know each other a little bit better and like getting to play with each other more. And obviously last year having that under our belt, but coming into this year and kind of just having a better sense of everyone and what they do well and how you can help someone else, and how they can help you. Like it just is a well-rounded experience. And I think that's helped, openings for everyone, including myself. So
That's great. Yeah, just a couple more before I let you go. One I thought of right now, because I was about to introduce this next question by saying I've got to let you go to an important practice. And then a question popped up in my head of what is a Carly Clark practice like at this point in the season? Are you guys working on new things? Obviously, you're prepping for your next opponent, but are you running through the same fundamentals just to make sure you really get them down? Like what are you working on now that we're so deep in the season? Without giving away too much, of course.
yeah, no, of course. It honestly depends on the day and just like obviously we've had a week to get ready for a semifinal, but a lot of intensity, a lot of mindful execution, offensively and defensively, and then also just like fundamental, like getting reps up, getting shots up. This is like kind of a vague answer, but like honestly,
That's
like
right.
a little bit of everything, I think is just like the key to, not necessarily like changing anything drastically, but just like finding our footing and continuing to do what we do well and build off those things, is usually just like Carly from September to now. So
Yeah.
realistically, obviously like a little bit more, um, you know, specific preparation, but I'd say like our intensity and our format is very similar to just like how, we've prepared and what's been successful in the past as well. So
Coach Clark, obviously one of the best in the land, so it's always curious to hear what she's up to in her practices. Kaillie, good luck this weekend. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate it.
thanks for having me.
Thanks again to Kaillie, and now it's time to talk semifinals. Why don't we start with the TMU Bold women's team since we're on the subject anyway, as they head to the Ravens' Nest to take on Carleton. Obviously, no team has been able to solve the Ravens yet this year. TMU included in that. Carleton won the only regular season matchup 63-56 as Jacqueline Urban went off for 23 points and 11 rebounds in that one. TMU's bigs are going to have their hands full with the Carleton star this weekend, that is for sure. But as we heard Kaillie talk about, TMU wins on defense. Carleton may have won that regular season matchup, but those 63 points they scored were the second lowest total that they scored all season long. A win for TMU is going to start at that end of the floor, and then we'll see how they can attack this Carleton team on the other end. No one's been able to knock off the Ravens yet, but the Bold have as good a shot as anybody. Our other women's semifinal is also in our nation's capital as Windsor heads east to take on the Ottawa GGs. The only time these two teams met was literally all the way back in the first game of the season in October, as Ottawa beat the Lancers 77-54. But a lot has changed since October. I think we can fairly safely throw that one out. The Lancers are more than capable of keeping up with the GGs on offense, and it's a truly balanced attack coming out of Windsor this season, led by that dangerous trio of Grutenboer, Sherratt, and Leah Tate. The two teams are also close on defense, with Ottawa being ranked number 2 and Windsor coming in at number 5 in terms of points allowed per game. One key factor is that no one in Ontario allowed a lower three-point percentage than the Ottawa GGs this season. That's something to really keep an eye on. If Windsor can get some of those outside shots to fall, especially early on, we should see a great game. Really looking forward to that one. Over to the men's side, where our first semifinal has the upstart Ridgebacks heading to Kingston to take on the Gales. Queens won both of the regular season matchups, and you definitely have to call them the favorites here. But ask Lakehead and Brock what it means to be the favorites against Ontario Tech. I think they would both tell you not very much. The defense has been on another level for the Ridgebacks in these playoffs, and we'll see what that kind of looks like when they go up against a really good Queens attack. We'll see what Ollie Enkin has to deal with. Meanwhile, on the other end, I would love to see some Silas Syed possessions, one of the best defenders in the OUA against Lucas Silas, in going up against one of the best scorers in the OUA in Zubair Syed. That would be a basketball fan's dream to see them going one-on-one. Don't count out Ontario Tech, folks. They've proven us wrong twice in a row now, and I'm going to bet against them at my own risk. Our final semifinal matchup to go over today sees Ottawa playing host to TMU as Aaron Rooms leads the Bold against the number 1 seed in the OUA this year. The GGs haven't lost a game since November, and do you know who they lost to back in November? It was actually the Brock Badgers, but you thought I was going to say TMU. Unfortunately for the Bold, Ottawa did win the only matchup this year, 86-64. And more importantly, we mentioned it just talking about their quarterfinal win off the top of the show. They scored 24 points off turnovers in that win against TMU in the regular season. TMU had just 8 in that game. It's a huge part of how Ottawa plays the game. It's a recipe that we've seen many of the best OUA teams over the past years replicate. Points off turnovers is a way to win games in the playoffs. Unfortunately for the Bold, that's been a bit of a problem for them this year, averaging over 15 turnovers a game in the regular season. If they can't get that under control this weekend, that could be a breaking point between these two great teams. But we saw the other side of the coin in their win against Windsor with the 33 assists on 40 made shots. So if the passes connect for TMU and they take care of the ball, I think this one could go either way. You can't let yourself be chasing the GGs back down the floor all night long. Thank you all so much for watching. Enjoy the games this weekend. If you are in Ottawa or Kingston, make sure you get out there and support your teams. And thank you so much for watching. My name is Griffin Porter. We'll see you next week, where we'll be previewing the Wilson and the Critelli Cups. Exciting stuff. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.